Good afternoon, and following the introduction by Peter, I would be taking you quickly through the water, land and ecosystem, that is the CGI research program, which was earlier referred as CRP 5, and this basically deals with improving the natural resource management for achieving the food security and improving the rural livelihoods. And you see that most of the centers are involved in this particular CGIAR research program. This particular program addresses the challenges of water scarcity, restoring the degraded lands, and handling the trade-offs between the agricultural intensification, that is sustainable intensification, ecosystem services, and sustainable development. And in that regard, it focuses all its research efforts on improving the global understanding of critical interactions. And that is very important in this particular research program, that we are looking at interactions between the land, water, and the ecosystems. And the outputs basically expected are the increased food production, improved livelihoods, and sustainable resource management as such. All of us are well aware, this slide has been seen earlier number of times, that 1/3 of the population in the developing countries is facing the physical scarcity of water, and also in the African region the population is facing the economic scarcity of water, and growing the challenge of providing the food security for increased population, as well as changing food habits and demand from the other sectors like ecosystems, domestic industries, and for food production by the agriculture. The water demand is increasing, and the only solution for that is to enhance the water use efficiency and produce more from the land resources, which are most of the time we find that across the developing world they are in the degraded stage. The overall goal of this particular program is to achieving the sustainable improvement in agricultural productivity, which required to produce enough food for all and generate sufficient income to lift millions of smallholder households from poverty, while also ensuring their food and nutritional security. And the specific objective during the first 5 years, which has been put together to intensify the farming systems sustainably. It is the farming systems, and it is not basically what till we are very much well accustomed to of the crop focuses as such. That is not the purpose here. It is basically the farming systems, sustainably restoring the degraded lands while using the natural resources wisely and minimizing the harmful impacts on the supporting ecosystems. If we look at the conceptual framework, in this basically we see that the major programs on the irrigation systems, rain-fed and pastoral systems, and resource recovery and reuse basically are the main 3 research programs which will be addressing the issues of ecosystem services and environment. Of course, we know there are a lot of external drivers which change the functioning of the ecosystems, and we will be working at the landscape scale and the basin scale for most of the time, and information services will be the backbone for sharing the information with different stakeholders to come up with the policies and management options to reach to the outputs, outcomes, and then have the feedback mechanism into the research programs as such. The guiding principles are that work at the landscape scale, social, biophysical, and interactions. So anything which is at individual field level where the interventions can be made is out of the boundary for this particular research program, and all the area development activities On the larger scale, whether it is at micro scale of 500 hectares, at a district level, or at a micro watershed or a basin level, is the area of this particular research program. Joint decision making, learn from successes and failures around the world, as we know that water, land degradation and sustainability are global issues, and wherever the good examples from the earlier work are available, that need to be pulled together, and also the failure, so that we don't repeat those mistakes. Examine the supporting, regulating and provisioning services, as well as understand the on-site and off-site impacts. What Peter was talking about, trade-off analysis and other things, that is what we look into this particular program, that if we do the water management at one location, what will be its downstream impact, what will be its on-site impact, and what is the trade-off between the achieving the food security for the downtrodden people in the upland areas as compared to the well-to-do people, how much water they will have to sacrifice for that purpose, which they are traditionally accustomed to receive without any interventions in the upland areas. Ecosystem services at scales and their role in alleviating the poverty. And ecosystem services are looked at not only from the perspective of providing the ecosystem services as such, but the business opportunities, how can be generated, and the people who are involved in providing these ecosystem services, how the business models can be constructed around that. That is the guiding principle in this particular one. And evaluating the trajectories, tipping points and thresholds in agricultural landscapes. There are a number of places where we talk of the tipping points, whether it is in terms of the water use efficiency, whether it is in terms of groundwater recharge or groundwater exploitation, and all those trade-offs, as well as the tipping points where the situation can go to such an extent from which return will not be possible. And those are the issues which basically we will be looking into this particular research program. The 5 strategic research portfolios are basically, one deals with the irrigated systems, which is mainly with the canal irrigation system as well as the groundwater irrigation systems. The second one is with the rain-fed systems across the globe, wherever the areas have been identified, how we can intensify the rain-fed system and bridge the gap which is existing. Resource recovery and reuse, which deals mainly with the wastewater, that is the grey water as such, and how the resources can be recovered from that and reused in the agriculture as such. River basins, these are mainly for the governing and institutional mechanisms and policies. Basically, we will be looking at for the trade-off analysis and other thing, and underlying across all the 4 will be the information system to share the knowledge across the research themes as well as across the different stakeholders. The way it contributes to the system level outcomes for environmental sustainability, you can look at starting from the rain-fed systems as well as from the river basins and the resource recovery information systems, specifically identification of special risks to ecosystem services, enabling more informed planning and resource use, and also the irrigated systems, and that's how it will be contributing it to the ILO of environmental sustainability. For food security, in case of rain-fed systems, the main hypothesis is that there are large yield gaps, and it is possible to sustainably intensify these rain-fed systems and achieve the food security, and that is where it will contribute to the food security, as well as in case of resource recovery. In this case, basically the water which is wasted and from the industries as well as from the domestic wastewater, how successfully it can be used for irrigating the agriculture safely, so that the health and other aspects are addressed properly. Same way is the irrigated systems in terms of enhancing the efficiency of the irrigated systems. That is the blue water what we are talking here, through the governance and participatory management and integrated water resource management to achieve the purpose of food security as such. For improving the livelihoods, once we are able to enhance the environmental sustainability as well as enhance the agricultural production to achieve the food security, basically through business model, what we are really looking into it, that how the livelihoods can be improved by generating the income for the other sectors or the other stakeholders like women and landless communities in the basins or in the watersheds where we are looking at it. And if we look at the river basins, better collaborative investment in water storage and distribution networks for cooperative management of water release in Central Asia. That is basically the governing system which can bring in the business models as such, so that appropriate water use efficiency measures can be taken in. The cross-cutting themes, in addition to the research portfolio as such, one group deals with the ecosystem services, and there is a cross-cutting group has been formed, institutions and governance, and the third one is the gender. And in this case, basically across the research portfolio, these three cross-cutting themes are addressed, and specific focal points are taking care of the specific issues related with the ecosystem services. We are not necessarily only from the partners focal points are there, but the outside experts also have been co-opted into these cross-cutting themes. Research alone is not sufficient, and basically it builds on the partnerships, embracing the spirit of reform, monitoring and evaluation, good capacity building, communication and uptake. And in this case, basically all the issues of converting the outputs into outcomes are taken into account by adopting these particular facilitating factors in the particular one. Where this particular program works in Southeast Asia, South Asia, Central Asia, Middle East, East Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa and Latin America, and these are the basins which have been identified. But let me clarify that these basins are not only the restricting areas for the work as such, and wherever the other opportunities for the other issues are in case of wastewater as well as the rain-fed systems are taken, and the on-site, off-site impacts as well as the trade-off analysis and governing and policy institutions are the one which will be looked into the basin scale as such. The ICRISAT portfolio, basically we are involved largely in the rain-fed systems, which deals with improving the soil fertility, improving the water management, enhancing the pastoral systems and valuing the ecosystem services. In case of irrigated, we are also involved in the groundwater irrigation, particularly in the watershed areas when we harvest the rainwater and augment the groundwater, how efficiently the groundwater can be utilized in terms of water use efficiency, institutional mechanisms and sustainable development of groundwater resource. And recently we have embarked on resource recovery and reuse, that is through the India-EU proposal on wastewater reuse, biotreatment and safe reuse in agriculture, where we will be looking at basically the philosophy in this particular SRP is that it is not a wastewater, but it is full of resource which can be taken out, economically valuable resource, and business opportunities can be created in terms of treating the industrial wastewater as well as domestic wastewater for use in the agriculture. We also are involved in the information systems, and in this particular SRP at ICRISAT, we are directly associated in the gender group, and we have a team of scientists working on the gender issues in the watershed management along with the gender specialist. We are also involved directly with the impact assessment team with Dr. Kizito, with information management team with Dilip, and in fact we are working on a new way of sharing the knowledge with these different stakeholders like farmers as well as policymakers using the IT, particularly in the Bhuchetna program, which also works at a landscapes level or at a